It's a long time established. Well, welcome to the promised land. Seems to be working all right. Yeah. Anybody else have God asked you to do something scary? I don't mean necessarily like in James' situation where you left one locale and went to another locale, but the Lord asked you, thank you. I wish that would help. It'll be nice. I appreciate it, but I'm still going to cough, I know. It's not my throat, it's my lungs. Herb? Yeah, public speaking. Absolutely. I can so relate. Absolutely. Yeah, God says, I want you to teach this. First time I ever taught anybody anything were these little second grade Sunday school kids. Um, the Duggar girl and the Byers boy. They were little bitty kids at that time. And they had been in school since they were wee little. I had not been in school, in church. I had not been in church, and I'm learning the lesson like Noah and, Samson and like David and Goliath. And I'm teaching them, and I'm pretty excited about it because I'm never like, wow, this is really neat stuff in the Bible here. I didn't know all this was here. And they're looking at me like, yeah, we've heard this story like 10 times, you know. But I was scared to death. One time they asked me, said somebody there was a Sunday school class that met at the local nursing home. And they said, hey, we need a Sunday school teacher for the nursing home. And would you do it? I'm like, sure, why not? Let's go. That was an experience. That was an experience. I had people hollering. I had people going to sleep. I think I had one lady die. I mean, it was quite an experience there. Sometimes the Lord asks us to do things that are scary. And sometimes He says, listen, you got to make the first move. You got to make the first move. I'll take care of you. You follow me. You trust me. You believe in me. You lean on me. And I'll care for you. Now you take the first move. We call it stepping out on faith, right? Now, that's the big ask that God gives to Abraham. Let's see the believing response. Look at verse number 4. So Abram went as the Lord had told him. He went. Notice that. Abram went as the Lord told him. He obeyed. Then Abram was a young man, 75 years old. Around here, by the way, I've been told you don't get in the old geezers club until you hit 80. And so you got to be 80. So to some of you all, he's a kid. Anyway, he was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Verse 5, and Abram took Sarai his wife and Lot his brother's son, that make him his nephew, and all their possessions that they had gathered and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they set out to go to the land of Canaan. And when they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh, and at that time the Canaanites were in the land. Now, not knowing where he was going, taking only his wife, his nephew, a few people that they had convinced to go with them, and their stuff, Abram left all that he knew to go to this place and to a future that was absolutely unknown. Abram acted in faith. This was an act of obedience. Hebrews chapter 11, verse number 6. And without faith it is what? Impossible upon it. God says, I'm not pleased with that. I'm not pleased. He said, the only thing that pleases God is faith. And without faith, it's impossible to please Him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who seek Him. I've said this statement many, many times. I'll say it again many, many more times. God is not a respecter of persons. However, God very much is a respecter of faith that leads to obedience. Boy, if you can learn anything from my ministry in your whole life, in my whole life, If you could get that one thing, I will feel like I have had a successful ministry because now I have taught you how to be pleasing to God. Huh? God is not a respecter of persons, but God will respect your faith that leads to an action of obedience. That is the simplicity of that. That's a profundity that's so simple, I'm afraid we miss it. Obeying only after you can see it is not faith, and it is not pleasing to God. Hear me. Obeying the principles and the commands of the Word of God, not knowing the outcome, regardless of the cost, despite the shame, the condemnation, or maltreatment that may come, that is what it means to act in faith. If the Word of God says it, I believe it. If the Word of God teaches it, I believe it. The principles, the precepts, the commands, the promises of God. If God says it, I believe it, and I'm going to act on it, irregardless of the consequences, irregardless of what I face. I'm going to trust God and leave the results up to Him. So vital. By the way, that's the only way to be pleasing to God. The only way to be pleasing to God. Ever had to do that? James shared about his. Melissa and I hadn't been married a year. I shared this in my class on Sunday night. If you're in there, sorry, you're going to hear it again. I'd forgotten about this. And now since I thought about it, I've relived it a time or two since I thought about it again. I worked in a factory, a big, large factory in my hometown, a big tire plant.